Meta unfortunately had their second round of layoffs yesterday. Both you and I were affected by the layoffs back in November of 2022. What was going through your mind yesterday?
Yeah, it's always tough. It's always like a super tough situation. I've been laid off two times. Once at a startup when we ran out of funding, and then obviously at Meta. It is it's a very challenging time, and I feel a lot of empathy for those that do get laid off. I have some friends that they were on leave, or they were planning to go on leave and they got laid off, and it's life impacting. And then there's some others that are on visas, and so it's definitely super tough. And I feel that it's a bummer for them, but yeah, that's why, like, I hope that they can all land something in a short amount of time.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And hopefully your advice and words of wisdom can help with that as well. Let's think back about 6 months ago, right? This was maybe a couple of weeks before the November layoffs. Tell me about your thoughts leading up to that. Did you hear any rumors? How were you feeling?
Yeah, so probably 6 months before, I had not crossed my mind. I remember talking to my wife about like potential layoffs. At that time, I had transitioned to a full-time remote role, and one of the concerns that my wife flagged was potentially they would, if there were layoffs, they would lay off folks that work from home or like are fully remote. And so didn't even cross my mind. I just thought, like, well, we're performing really well, and the stock was, I think, 6 months before, in early January, February, things were still looking okay. And so I had a lot of confidence in the company at the time, and it didn't cross my mind. I think at the 3-month mark, 3 months before is where you start to get a little bit worried, and you see the macro economic environment where other companies are starting to do layoffs and cost cutting. And you also see that ad tech was hit a little bit harder than anticipated by the Apple tracking prompt. And so then I started to worry a little bit. But yeah, 6 months ago, no worries. 3 months, started to worry quite a bit. The weeks before was I had thought that in terms of like projects, I thought probably my team would be potentially cut, and we would be moved on to a different team to work on something that's a little bit more higher priority. But was a bit of a surprise, the week before.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. What happened during the day of layoffs? Like, how did you find out? Were you up at 3 o'clock like everyone else was?
Yeah, I was not up at 3 o'clock. I was up at 6 a.m. I remember the day before, I was having a meeting with my data scientists, and we were still debating on like the data and how we were going to present it, and how to structure a particular presentation. And we were so serious about it at the time, right? Which was our mode of operating. And there was a something that he mentioned at the time was like, well, maybe we should just wait until like the next day to have this conversation, and we won't need to have it anymore. And I kind of checked it a little bit, but yeah, the next morning around 6 a.m. I got the email came in, and I read it, and found out that I was impacted. And so it was definitely rough. I kind of talked about how I feel about the current layoffs, and I felt those feelings, right? I first felt very sad, like, what am I going to do? I am the single breadwinner at home, and so it's trying to figure out, like, well, what's next, and how quickly I need to do this. And I didn't think too much of it. I just figured, I'm just gonna hop back on the train, and try to look for something, and look for what's next. And so, there was that kind of, I would say, conviction that I had, right? And clarity that, like, well, I have to go, I'm going to go and find something else and find my next new home. And there was that, so there was that clarity. And then I took a little bit of time off to travel with the family for about a week. We went to SoCal to have, just do some family things. And then I came back and just worked through the holidays to find another role.
Yeah, so to that point, I think you mentioned that you had such conviction. You were one of the very first people that I knew that embraced job hunting relatively quickly after the layoffs. What motivated you to do so?
Yeah, I think definitely it was the clarity that I had that, because I was the single breadwinner at home, I wanted to find something, definitely quickly. I did have, we did have quite a bit of we had buffer, but I think, I don't like to be not working for too long. I think for me, my mind likes to work on different types of problems, and so I wanted to jump back on it, and so I didn't delay too much. The other concern or worry that I had was there would be potential layoffs in 2023, and so I knew that the market would probably get a little bit worse, and there would be more candidates, and so I didn't want to delay too long, and I jumped into it in December.
Yeah. Yeah. What was your approach and strategy to job hunting?
Yeah, definitely, very similar to 2019. In the, 2019 is when I first joined Meta, right? Definitely, brushed up on my mock interviews, and, well, thank you for helping me prepare. So I did a lot of those. I did at least 30 mock interviews with, fellow product managers, both like friends and people that I met online, and also, obviously former Meta product managers like yourself. And just really, like, after each one, I would dig into it and try to figure out, how could I improve, like a particular case or a particular interview, right? So I think that reflection is super important, and then also like exercising, actually doing the mock interview is super important.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And so yeah, that was super important. And I think, yeah, in terms of preparation, I would just say, like, practice, and there's no secret around it.
Yeah, for sure. How did you end up getting the interviews? And like, did you reach out to recruiters, or recruiters reach out to you? What was that like?
Yeah. So I did a LinkedIn post, which was really helpful. I really hesitated on doing that at first, but after talking to a few friends, it made me come around this. Originally, I was worried about, what would other folks think if I make this post? If I let folks know that I'm laid off, and there's this instinct where you feel like like the recruiters might not value you as much. And it also, like, when you get laid off, you also have a sense of, like, gosh, what's the issue with me, right? Or, like, you sort of have a little bit of the self-doubt a little bit more when you get laid off. And so that's why I didn't want to make the post initially. But some friends told me, definitely the recruiters, when they see that, they see, talent is talent. And so definitely was good in terms of getting reach outs from recruiters. And making that post also, a bunch of my friends saw that from other companies, and they actually also reached out, and so that was super helpful. And then one fellow product manager at Meta, Dare, had reposted my badge post, and so that actually helped me get a bit of traction as well.
And Dare was actually my manager on Horizon Worlds, and so shout out to Dare, because he also, I think, reposted my posts, which I actually didn't know until Lewis Lin, who's like the king of product management, who wrote a bunch of like books, reached out to me on LinkedIn and was like, "Hey, Darius said some really nice things about you on Twitter." And I was like, "What?" And he was like, "Do you want to talk about potential opportunities at a company that I think he was starting?" And so I like went to Darius' Twitter. I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I see myself like there." Like, how did you know that Darius reposted it?
I think you had actually brought it up.
Oh
I
yeah,
did not know. I didn't know. I
yeah,
read the post and it had a lot of reach. And I
yeah.
think you had mentioned it. And actually, like, I actually follow him on Twitter. And so I actually stumbled upon it as well. And so, yeah, I'm super thankful for that. That got a bunch of
Yeah.
reach.
Yeah, I think like a sign of a really good manager is when like he advocates for his people and the people that he works with without even like the people even knowing. So shout out to Dare.
Yeah.
All right, so I guess how did you approach or how did you organize your interviews? I know that you had like quite a few of them, and like how did you make sure that you were able to clear the loops around the same time to get like offers around the same time?
Yeah. Yeah. So that is that could definitely be challenging because the companies move at different paces. I think my main strategy was to just be very transparent with the companies and let them know that, I want to make a really good decision, right? I think any company wants you to they want to make sure that they have the right candidate that's going to be happy. And at the end of the day, if you like if as a company you pressure somebody into it or, kind of strong arm them into taking an offer through, various tactics, their retention is not going to be great, right? And so like with that in mind, I definitely was very transparent that I want to make the best choice, and I had a certain criteria that I had, and I was upfront about that, and so like that helped me kind of get all of the timelines lined up, right? Fortunately, I didn't have any exploding offers where like some companies said like, hey, take the offer tomorrow or the next day. But I would say like the best thing to do is to be transparent about your timelines and then ask if it works with them. The recruiters had always been very transparent about their timelines, and I had been transparent with them as well, letting them know like, hey, like I'm still early in the process and I need about 2-3 weeks. And so that definitely helped. I think the other is the other thing that you can do, and I actually did, is like you can buy time by like talking to more people as well, and that actually also helps because it gives you a better sense of the company. And so that's like another thing that you can do to get all of the interviews lined up.
Yeah, makes sense. And like when you prep for these interviews, did you have a strategy in terms of like, was it all similar in terms of prep? Did you need to tweak your interview prep differently, catering to each company? Like, what was that like?
Oh yeah, I would say they're all very different. Some companies are very behavioral focused, and then some companies are very case study focused, and so it definitely takes a bit of time. I would say like leading up to a particular interview, it probably takes me like at least probably like a week to like feel like I'm at least 80% prepped for those particular companies.
Right. And so once you got the offers, what was your negotiation strategy?
Yeah. So my negotiation strategy, I did use a negotiation service, and I found it quite helpful to use because these are folks that have been on the other side of the negotiation, and so these are like former big tech recruiters. So that was very helpful. I think what I found most valuable about that was how they talked me through the process of what is your recruiter thinking at that particular moment, who are they going to get approvals from, and what are they potentially going to say. And so that was very helpful. And then also having the data on how competitive is your actual offer, so that was really great, and gave me reassurance that despite despite like paying a bit for it, it gave me that reassurance that like, okay, this is like this is a pretty good offer and is comparable with market rate.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. I think the other, actually, one more thing that I was going to add is, of course, like having offers lined up around the same time
Mhm.
is helpful as well. And so that, I would say that also helps.
For sure, for sure. And I know we're kind of reaching a time, so one last question is, what advice do you have for those that have been laid off, or even those that haven't and just looking for another opportunity, especially in this economic climate?
Yeah, I would say, obviously like preparation is a must-have. I would say, at this current time, definitely reach out to your friends and people at former roles. I think I've heard quite a bit about quite from some recruiters that the market is quite, there's a lot of supply out there, to say that frankly. And I think it's important to use whatever leverage that you have, right? So this could be people that can give you referral, or people like friends that can help you do preparation. And so that's really important to get your foot in the door somehow. And I think the other is to target a few companies that you really like, and really focus on those. There was one thing that I did that was I would say like is a little bit of a secret sauce. Is there's a company that I really liked. It was a kind of like an ad tech company, and I really liked the manager as well. And I actually didn't do that well on that interview. I felt like I bombed it. And afterwards, I reflected on that exercise, and I actually wrote up a Google Doc and redid that exercise and sent it to them. And like at the end, they said like, "Hey, we really like your enthusiasm. We liked how much you cared about the particular product." And I actually got the offer. And so I think like putting in the extra mile and really caring about it definitely helps a lot. I think the companies that are looking for people, despite the fact that there's so many candidates, I think they still want to find the right candidate, right? And they want to ideally find the candidate that will take the offer, and not somebody that's going to use your offer as as leverage. And so really demonstrating that you care, and you're going to go the extra mile, that really helps.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Well, Gary, thank you so much for taking the time to share your wisdom and your advice. I hope everyone that's watching this, it's helpful. And again, I really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, absolutely. Pleasure to talk to you. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.